All right, so I want to talk about this story that came out a couple days ago from CNBC. Now IGN's covering it, and a few others are covering it, and that is Bob Iger's discussion about these recent movies flopping. And we're going to talk about this here. It says here Bob Iger talked about all of Disney's recent box office disappointments, including Elemental and Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny, saying that the company's focus on streaming has diluted people's interest due to the overwhelming amount of movies and TV shows. So, I did a video yesterday here on the channel where I had a podcast actually with Mike from Laughing Stock Media and Laughing Stock Cinema. And we're discussing why there were so many flops and if we've actually hit superhero fatigue. So he goes on to say, or it says here, Disney CEO blames too many Marvel Disney Plus shows for weakening audience focus and attention. So I've been talking about this for at least a year because it's funny because it's weird to me that Bob Iger makes this statement but doesn't really appear to be doing anything about it, even though now that it's in the public eye, I feel like we're going to start seeing him do things about it now. Do I agree with everything Bob Iger has done? No. I think his treatment of Star Wars and throwing away George Lucas's, original episode 7, 8, 9 treatments, I think that was a mistake. I think clearly Disney made a huge mistake with Star Wars because of Bob Iger's leadership. They rushed it into production, and it is what it is. However, I think he's dead on with this. I don't know if Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and Elemental flopped because of the superhero fatigue. We can't say that because neither of those two movies are classified as being superhero movies. However, remember, during the first two phases and most of phase three, we had two movies a year and that was it. And then with phase 3, 4, and 5, it's now 3 movies a year, except for the pandemic years, and multiple Disney Plus shows. And I said a long time ago that I myself, who's knee deep in this stuff, maybe not as much as others, but I'm pretty deep into this stuff. And I've been a fan of the comics even before they even started making these movies. I can't keep up. And there's probably other people out there who love the comics, who love these stories, and even they can't keep up because it's just too much product. So I do think that MCU Phase 4 and 5 are very diluted. I think there's way too many shows. I think they should scale that back. But how does that explain Dial of Destiny? How does that explain Elemental? With Dial of Destiny, there were a lot of fake leaks out there, and obviously Lucasfilm overall was not really, they didn't really have the fans behind them because of what they did with Star Wars. But that's a very small amount of people. I think a lot of people were like in the casual audience don't even care about Kathy Kennedy or any of the crap she did with Lucasfilm. Plus, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, although they are both part of Lucasfilm and they're both created by George Lucas and conceptualized by him, they're two different series. And with Indiana Jones, the last time we saw a new Indiana Jones was in 2008, and it was not well received. Indiana Jones is a franchise that kind of belongs in the 80s. As much as I say that knowing and loving those original 3 movies, they do belong in the 80s, man, because the 80s was all about action stars and adventure, and I do love movies that are throwbacks to the 80s. And I love Indiana Jones, but it feels like the last couple generations of kids, maybe the 2 generations back, which would probably be me, because I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. I feel like because we caught the very tail end of Indy, can probably connect with it better. But some of the kids that are born in the 2000s or even the 2010s, Indiana Jones has kind of a bad rep. And seeing him come back for one more adventure is just not going to connect with them as much as it would somebody who either lived through it, who's older than me, because I didn't live through it, or somebody who grew up with it, which I did watch the 3 films when I was very little. And again, but again, that doesn't explain Elemental. So what I think really is going on here, it's not just the MCU delivering a subpar product. It's not just the fact that Ant-Man really blew for a lot of people and that Thor Love and Thunder really, really shit the bed. And there's been an overall just lack of enthusiasm for this phase. That's only part of the problem. I do think that nowadays, and I'm not sure if it's the economy or what you can really blame on this, but I do feel like nowadays it does seem like people are being a little bit more careful with their money. Are there, like, do Regal Cinemas and AMC have like movie cards that you can use to, pay less for movies? Yes, I have one. I have AMC Stubs A List. I can go 3 times a week to watch a movie and it's okay. It's, I can go and it's fine. But what about others who don't have that, who only go see 1 or 2 movies a year? It feels like back in the day, Marvel movies were a big event. Even going back to Star Wars, remember how Star Wars films were once every 3 years with the original trilogy and the prequels, and now you're getting one a year, or you did for a while. From 2016 to 2019, we got one a year. And quickly, Disney realized it was too much. And that was under Bob Iger's call. The irony, isn't it? That was Bob Iger's idea. So now he's saying to scale it back. And I agree. I think people are now being a little bit more stingy with their money. I think folks are now saying, you know what? These movies are going to be on streaming within sometimes even a month and a half. Like some of these new movies. So when I was a kid, and many of you, it took months before a movie hit home video. And I'm talking about VHS and DVD. It took at least 3-4 months, sometimes longer. Now we're seeing movies pop up on streaming. Like, I remember, I forget what movie it was. It might have been Fast 10 or the Mario movie, where it was a month? Maybe a month and a half? Maybe less than that. It might have been 3 weeks. It wasn't very long. I want to say a month. And it was already on streaming. So people are probably being a bit smarter with their money and saying, okay, if we're going to go see a big event, like an MCU film, we're not going to go see these MCU movies because they're not big events anymore. Instead, we're going to go see like the Avengers movies, the Captain America movies. We're going to find out next year how that does. We're going to go see Thor. That movie had made some decent income, even though it was poorly received. It was poorly received, but it didn't flop like Ant-Man did. And including Spider-Verse too. Because we know, we know that Spider-Verse is only going to be 3 movies. They're not going to make 80 more Spider-Verse movies. There's not different phases. Now, will those characters continue on? Maybe. We'll talk about that in a different video because Miles Morales will be live action at some point, whether it be from the Spider-Verse universe or somewhere else. There will be a live action Miles Morales. He's too popular. But I still feel like, with that being put aside, that's an important franchise that people were invested in. Talking about the Into the Spider-Verse franchise. Those are going to do well. Look at DC. All that behind-the-scenes nonsense and the constant reboots and nothing matters and Henry Cavill's in, then he's out. Like, people get tired of that shit, bro. And I think that going forward, they need to scale back on the Disney Plus shows. I said this before. I don't give a damn about the Agatha show or Echo. I could not care any less. There are too many shows coming out that I do not care about. And I'm probably not going to watch them when they're out. And that's something that has to be looked at. Because not only do the stories have to be good, but the characters have to be characters that we care about. It's important. So those are my thoughts on Bob Iger's comments. What do you think? Is there something else we're missing? 2023 is a weird year for movies because just a couple years ago, these movies would have been maybe not well received, but would have, at least made their money back. And now we're seeing actual flops. What can you do? Take care, y'all. I'll see you soon.